Thank you all for coming. We'll have people trickle in, I'm sure. And so how many of you have been to one of my lectures before, heard my story? A couple of you, okay. What I was told was that I was here to help lightworkers through a very difficult time on the planet. And I didn't know what that meant, but now I'm starting to truly understand exactly what that means. And I have a really good feel for why I'm here and what my work is in this world. And I'm truly blessed and grateful that I found that, because just in the same way I healed my chronic pain, being connected to what I'm here to do manifests things for me, resources, abundance that I could have never imagined. So it works exactly the same way. But speaking about being in transitional times, right? Here we are, just past the inauguration day. We know there's so much going on the planet that's so significant right now. So a lot of the messages that I channel are about where we are energetically, why things are taking place, and how we can transition through that very comfortably. And 2016 was a super important year. They've all been super important years, but we had some very significant solar energies. And what those solar energies came to do were to activate our DNA and give us more information, to help us ascend or transcend the dimension that we have been in, which has been very physical. And we've been very tuned into our physical world, and now we're being elevated into a new perspective. And so what a lot of people found in 2016, especially with these big solar eclipses that we had and solar transitions we've had, was that their world started shifting and changing really fast. This happened with relationships. Relationships fell away. They became a very prominent part of our experience. Some of us had to make hard decisions about relationships, or we realized the relationships we manifested in the physical were not equal to who we were now. The way that we did our work in the world. And I have clients who come to me that are very gifted healers, very gifted intuitives, who said, oh my gosh, the way that I was doing this isn't working anymore. Or the clients aren't coming anymore. What is going on? Well, even the things that we created around our gifts in that reality had to shift, because we're moving into a more collective focus, right? So we might have been very singularly focused in our practice, and now we're being called to look at the way we practice differently, right? It's in every area of our lives. Financial abundance was a big one too, right? So a lot of quick shifts, a lot of transition. So what's coming in lately, what's most important for us to know, and I think we'll get some of this in the channeled message today, is that the Earth itself, Mother Earth itself, she has a record. We're familiar with Akashic record. How many of you know what that means? We have a record, right? A vibrational record. She does too. She's a living, breathing being, and we connect to that record. So we have a record that is expressed through us in singularity, but it has to have an effect on her and on everyone else. And that's the part we've forgotten, that we're coming more into now, that we're connecting to now. So she's been shifting in her harmonic frequency. Her harmonic frequency has been raising. And it hasn't been very level. It's been a little chaotic, because you think when you're adjusting something, you dial up a little bit, you dial down a little bit. The planetary energies were coming and causing that to happen, and that affected us. A lot of us felt that in the physical body. We had times where we were really exhausted this past year. We went through periods of time where we just went down hard, right? And times when we had to move really fast. Those were those frequency shifts. But what happened back in November, was that her harmony, her frequency, her sonic resonance actually came to a leveling off. It was about mid-November, about the second week in November. And a lot of people felt that, like the brakes going on, like the screech of the brakes. And we had some physical stuff come up with that too. So as we walk into this time where that harmony has now leveled off, we're actually bringing in a new dimension. And this gets kind of confusing when we talk about dimension, because all dimension is more information. If you look at it that way, you can't go wrong, right? Every dimension actually already exists here in the universe and exists in this room. But we're only tuning into a small fraction of that information, right? There are beings in this room that maybe Barb can see, and I'll be able to channel and express a message through. But yet at the same time, we don't perceive them as physical, right? We're perceiving each other and the physical chairs and all of this stuff, and we're quantumly entangled in this timeline. We can use all these fancy terms. All that means is we chose to be together in this point in time and exchange information with one another. That's what dimension's all about. So now we have this opportunity to bring in a new dimension because Mother Earth raised to the point where we can access new information. That doesn't mean it automatically happens. That's what's interesting, is that it's given us the ability. But think about all the people you know on the planet. They're all at varying levels of awareness, consciousness, right? Of speed of vibration. I mean, we know some people who are barely even awake. They don't even have any clue what's going on. They're so attached to their physical reality and CNN and all this other stuff that they're just oblivious to all this other stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. They're just tuning into that dimension. Those who have actually, I would say, been doing more work at the soul level, who have ascended, who've had a higher consciousness, are more aware of those shifts and changes and better able to connect to that information. We all went through a very similar structural change, right? That new harmonic made us all equal. And so the guides that I work with have been talking a lot about the splitting of timelines here, meaning that we're going to have two areas of collective consciousness on the earth functioning at the same time. A third dimensional group of beings and a fifth dimensional group of beings. And you can see that that's starting already right now, because when you go to dinner with your family member, maybe that's so tuned into CNN and physical and all of that stuff, you can't have this conversation with them and have it resonate, right? It's hard. It's like an argument, right? And so that right there is just the microcosm of the macrocosm. It shows you the way we're perceiving realities differently. And that's what we're about to go through, and we're here to bridge that with people. So we have a responsibility as light workers to actually usher this new dimension in. And I know that kind of sounds heavy, like, oh, I have a responsibility. Well, think about it this way. What if your responsibility to usher in a new dimension was to actually connect to your desire and your wants and your truth so viciously that it affected other people? That's what it is. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. That's how we bring in a new dimension. We actually start living our truth, and we start connecting to it in a way that others can see that their own truth is mirrored in that. Yeah.
This split that you're speaking of, is this anything to do with those who, that there's going to be a divide where those that choose to remain ignorant and then those that are consciously awakening?
Yes. And this isn't a physical manifestation, right? We're still going to know the people. If we have two areas of collective consciousness here on the planet, we're still going to know those people that exist in the third dimension, right? But they're just going to perceive a different reality than we do, okay? So, for example, the guides will often talk about suffering, right? There's going to be I'm sorry?
Vibrationally?
Vibrationally, yeah, or physically. Not necessarily they're going to suffer physically. I don't want to say that. That would be very fearful and scary. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. Let's take an example. Let's take one area of our society, such as the medical institutions, right? Something that the guides have said as a part of the splitting of the timelines and what's going on the planet is our medical institutions, the way that we formed them and created them, has to change. And we can already see some of that starting to crumble, right? In all of the new modalities, technologies, healing arts that are coming in to replace what was there. So if you have a group of people that are focused in the third dimension and they're still trying to hold on to something that's falling away, that isn't working anymore, they're probably going to suffer a lot more than those of us who are awakened or expanded our perception to these new tools and technologies that are coming in. Right? So they're going to be living in a different world where maybe things seem really difficult and hard. But at the same time, we are in that same world, but we're seeing them as actually exciting and progress taking place, right? That's the analogy I would use. I think that it's a subtle difference in the way that we're going to be living and the way we're going to perceive our reality. Does that make sense?
Yes. So it's utilizing the law of attraction in a way.
Yes.
And releasing all that no longer serves your highest and greatest good. And knowing that there is no floor and there is no ceiling, that it's just an open channel. And when you choose to be an open channel, you're just in the flow.
Yes, I agree with that. I would take it a step further because I think sometimes the law of attraction is a really misunderstood term. So I want to define it the way I understand it through the guides that I work with. Because we've been taught that our thoughts manifest things, right? And we can practice our thoughts, and our thoughts can be in alignment with what we want, and that will manifest. But that hasn't always worked for us very well. And we were actually taught that in a really physical dimension, right? And we're changing our dimension now. So it's almost like the laws of the universe have to upgrade with us, or the way that we participate in those laws have to change as well. So we have an emotional body. Our emotional body is very intricately connected to our thoughts, obviously, and that's equal to our vibration. So if you want to know how you're vibrating, you can always check in with your emotional body at any moment, and it will tell you exactly what you're matching in your life. But beyond that, what's going on is that, remember, we're bringing in this new collective reality, okay? And that's what this new harmonic's all about, this collective reality. So where we've wanted to manifest things in singular fashion, we were like, okay, I want the relationship, I want the car, I want the house, I want the clothes, whatever. I want it all that will make me happy. Maybe that made you happy in that third dimension, but now it's not going to make you happy anymore because in a collective reality, that stuff comes in to support your truth. It's a different vibration. That's why it's so important to really live that truth now, because manifestation comes quicker. The way that we live our lives is equal to the way that we create vibrationally and the way that we match, right? The things that we need, those infinite potentials that exist in the timelines that we've already created, because they're already there. And history is a big part of this too. We have a soul experience that we're having, and we have a collective experience we're also connected to. And that's one of the big things about the splitting of the timelines and what's going on the planet right now is, for those of you who are healers, we've been working in history, right? Okay, we've had pain come up, and we could delve into the records and go, wow, this person has this pain because they've had this pain many, many lives before. They had something that they didn't heal, and we've worked at that level. Well, now we've just shifted into collective reality. The collective history is really what's going to be coming up through us to serve. So we've always been connected to it, and we've been serving it through our own experience, but this is bigger, okay? This is like galactic, galactic and universal. And so when we move into that space, we really need to be so connected to who we are, because that's going to help us. We can rise above a lot of that history and be able to perceive it from that higher perspective. Does that make sense? Am I taking you outside of the realm of law of attraction?
No, and actually, it makes complete sense. Okay,
good. What I truly want to get at after saying all of that is, here we are now, and the brakes. Remember, we put on the brakes. A lot of people are feeling really stagnant right now in their lives, because a lot of things have happened, and now we're in this void. It feels like a void. Nothing's coming. We know there's more. We know we shifted. We know the changes need to come. We don't see it, right? A couple of messages coming in about that. First of all, this is an integration phase. Everything needs an integration phase, right? We have cycles of time where we're active and we rest. What's that rest period? Integration, right? This is a huge collective integration time. We need to kind of let that percolate. Everything we just went through, everything we just shifted, our physical energy, catching up to our non-physical energy, and we're moving into a more collective state. So we have to kind of flow with that for a little bit. But it's a perfect time to actually create that structure around you that you want. And remember how I said the responsibility, how we have a responsibility to usher in a new dimension. It feels like a burden. It's really not. All it is that, a lot of us have all these timelines that are lingering, that relationship that won't let go, or that job that, whatever it is, the belief system. Now's the time to really pay attention to those timelines. And all you need to do is you need to be able to interact within them with what you just integrated and learned in the last year. You just bring love to it. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to transition those timelines. We can't move into a new dimension and have all this manifestation take place when we're still held back in our physical world by things that we're not willing to shift. So now's the time to kind of bring that new new energy to the stuff that's still lingering. And the way the guides put this are like the most displeasing things in your world. It's like an uncomfortable place to be, right? You have to acknowledge all the most uncomfortable things that are going on with you and know that the reason they're uncomfortable is because you're vibrating different. That's all. You've now accepted new information and you're a different being. So that uncomfortable comes to show you, okay, this isn't matching who I am anymore. And it either needs to shift to match who I am, or I need to let it go in a loving way, right? That's a part of this. But we can also project into that new structure. When I talk about structure, all I'm talking about is our field of potential around us. And I sometimes see it in readings. I see this geometric structure that we have in our aura and around our bodies, and it holds all of our timelines and information. Project into that. Really tell yourself what it is that you want, what it is that you need in this life. Where are you going? Be mission focused, be collective focused, be intentional, because that's where manifestation now comes in really easy. Like, we don't have to use that law of attraction thought process, like I want the relationship and this is what it needs to look like. We need to be so connected to ourselves that that relationship that's out there that's supposed to support ourselves comes in, because it's already there. You know, it already exists. And we're making it really hard. And it doesn't have to be. I see you have another question. Go ahead.
I have lots of questions.
That's okay.
It's the muck that Buddha spoke of.
The muck?
Where the golden lotus will rise out of the...
Oh, well, yeah, I think we go through that muck all the time, don't we? Yeah. I don't think it's one transition that's muck. I think that we have many transitions that is equal to muck. And, from my perspective, you can make that density. I love to talk about that muck in terms of density, and the guides talk about this as well. We come with karma. We all know what that is, right? We have the vibrational stuff we have to serve, but we also have density. Density is the stuff we create. Okay, so when we have maybe that relationship and we're going, oh, I feel so responsible, my kids are gonna be affected by this, so I can't do what I want to do or whatever it is, we create density. And density is just that thick material that keeps us blocked from who we are and what we're here to do in the world. We could look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I'm so ugly, whatever it might be. I need to change this or that or the other thing. When you do that, you're creating density. Okay, and that structure that I told you about, that geometric structure, that density just keeps you from seeing that information clearly, right? We blame ourselves a lot, we shame ourselves a lot. Society has put a lot of restrictions on us. Teachings have put a lot of restrictions on us. Now's the time to let those go. Okay, we are sovereign beings. You have to find your sovereignty and be able to interact with the universe in that sovereignty.
It's just the density, like obstacles that we continue to put in front of ourselves because we tell ourselves that, well, in order for me to have this, I need to do this or I need that. And then all of a sudden,
absolutely,
pushing it away instead of just reaching out and taking what is yours.
Or I can't do that because of something else. Because it's, society told me I can't do it, or because, it'll hurt somebody else. I just brought in this beautiful message the other day I want to share with you, and I'm actually filming a new light worker course right now with the dolphin matrix, and it's just incredible. They brought in this really powerful message because we get so caught up in responsibility for other people and expectations and all this stuff. And they said, what you don't consider is that you are connected to all things. And there is a quantum entanglement between you and every other being on the planet. So those that are most close to you, they came to be served by your experience just how you came to be served by theirs. So if you're not in your truth, how is it that you're honoring that collective connection? We don't think about that. There's a lot of things conspiring in those decisions. Maybe it's beyond us. Maybe the decision that you need to make or you want to make is beyond you. Maybe it was an agreement that was made before you came. Or maybe it's interwoven with other people in a way that they get served, right? I'm not saying we're here to hurt people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we're here to, in some way, embellish our truth so that others can be served by that truth, right? Because that's what they came to see. And that's how we strengthen this whole collective connection. It has to be in love, right? We're either in love or we're in fear. That's the bottom line. You can look at all those vibrational things along the scale or whatever it may be, but it doesn't matter, right? We're only operating in fear or in love. And there's results based on those two things. So when we have hard decisions we have to make, or we see timelines that are bringing along with us that aren't equal to our truth, and whatever it may be, it can be anything. We have to just operate, and we have to operate in love, and we have to acknowledge who we are, and now's the time to integrate that. You have a question, Barb?
Yeah, you said only two things: love and fear. I try to wrap my mind around that. For me, I found that once I need to have something come in my life with someone, I've actually met two amazing people recently that, have come, and the one has made me want to be better than I am.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody, we all have our, but I didn't really think it was in love or fear to meet these. It was in, another something else,
Well, okay, I'm gonna define it differently and see if this makes some more sense to you.
All right.
Source energy works through the universe for you. Source energy is equal to love. So if you had someone come into your life who is making your life better in some way, even if that's hard, that's got to be source energy working through that person for you because it was something that you connected with. But fear isn't equal to source energy. And if you go down that fear path, that's all the negative, imprint stuff, right? That's anger, fear vibrates into a lot of things. I mean, if you look at the root cause of a lot of the poor decisions we make in our lives, it's really out of fear, right? So that's when the guys are saying that, it's either love or fear. I think they're putting that into a more cohesive definition of what is source energy. Because if we truly want to have a harmonious experience and have people come into our lives that are going to enhance our experience, and we have to be equal to love, because that love is source energy working through us, and it's working through other people to give us an experience. I don't think that's always easy. I mean, we know we have karmic things we have to go through and lessons we have to learn, right? But it doesn't mean that source energy can't work through those things. Because when we're in fear, okay, let's say we have a person come into our life that is really difficult to deal with. If we're in fear, or that person is causing us some kind of anger or whatever it might be, we're just closing off that connection to source energy. So if we vibrate in love, we're always going to see exactly what we need in that person. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, I kind of understand.
It's saying it a little differently, but yeah. So I am a trance channel. When I do this, what that means is my consciousness is outside of myself. I kind of leave my body and I'm more of an observer. And the messages from the guides are flowing through me, flowing through my body, using my hands, my eyes, whatever concepts are available to me to bring these messages through. I twitch a little, move a little when I channel. It's, as Tom is familiar, it's just the energies of the planet here are different than the guides that I'm bringing in and we're working with. Remember, this is a vibrational transmission. That means that it's not always about the words, and it doesn't matter if you even understand the words. You're receiving a vibration today that will shift you into a higher consciousness and help to uniquely make changes in your life as needed. We are the Council of Light, and we are pleased to begin. As a 12th dimensional energy, we come together in response to the Earth consciousness to support and assist you through a transition that you are walking. We are ones that are very in tune or responsible for the universal time grid. This is a web of consciousness or a web of energy that connects all beings. The flow of the universal web of consciousness that we speak of, defined as the time grid, has within it forms or pockets of consciousness in relationship to dimensional reality and in dimensional consciousness. In other words, there are many beings that are supported through this web of consciousness that we support. And we uphold within that the highest integrity, knowing that through your experience here, you are meant in some way to expand all other beings, and other beings are able to expand you. We want to start today with the message of your planetary body and how the transition is taking place between her new harmonic and your physical structure. We believe that this is important because as observers of what is taking place as an exchange between this time grid or web of consciousness, we are always monitoring the reaction of your structure to these physical planetary changes, as well as the way in which your non-physical energy is supporting the ascension timeline. We first want to say that as we have observed your structure, we have come to realize there are several key factors that are supporting you in your evolution, both at the soul level as well as at the collective level. At the soul level, first, what we would say is that you are more highly attuned as beings through the most recent planetary shift than you ever have been before. When we talk about attunement, we are speaking of harmonics, but we want to bring this down to the level of what the human consciousness would best understand. Harmonics in themselves operate as light, and you as a light being are now more equal in resonance and in speed and in time to your own light body. We've often spoken of the light body, and we wish to remind you of the definition of what that light body is. Many of you realize you have a physical body, and you also have a light body. The physical body is here as a makeup of your own creation. You have decided to come into this field of potential as a physical being, and before you arrived here, there were many ideas or desires that you put into your creative process that allowed you to manifest not only the beings that are around you in support, such as your family and your friends, but also the way your physical body is made up and what is contained within that physical body to support you in this life. When we come to a new harmonic, oftentimes what happens is that the physical body is able to better connect to light or frequency. This is a part of your ascension here, and you are both in the driver's seat of that as well as driving in the passenger seat of what higher dimensional beings are able to support. Through your own intention and through your own will, you ascend yourself. You make decisions, you make choices within your everyday experience that activate your DNA or take your soul into a better connection with that higher self energy. And that, of course, is helping your physical body to be more in tune or better connected with the light body. But in addition to that, there are many planetary energies that align with Mother Earth's record that support the way in which the light body and the physical body become better connected. And from our standpoint, when we say that the physical and the light body are better connected, there is less of a time-space reality between them. This is very important for you in regards to manifestation. Many of you understand that manifestation may have a lag time. You're working on something that you wish to experience here, and you're creating that through your thoughts, through your emotions, through your frequency. And oftentimes it does manifest, sometimes instantaneously, and other times there's a lag time between what you create here and what manifests in physical form. It is not necessarily that you must delve into the problem of why some things are instantaneous and why some things take a longer period of time. That has really been a function of where you have been in the third dimension. And it's been a function of the way that density and karma have operated within your structure. But what we see taking place now is that the way in which your light body connects to the physical body is more available through this harmonic. That is what we say puts you in the passenger seat of that driving car. Because many of the planetary alignments that have come have supported the way in which you receive that harmonic and the way in which that connection takes place. So what are some of the results of this? The integration of the physical and the light body. communication is one of the most important that we want to speak of today. What we understand as the Council is that there is a very strong and new force of telepathic exchange taking place between the Earth and other dimensions. Many of you may feel that in your own experience. You may encounter it in the way that you interact with beings or higher dimensions. But from our perspective or our vantage point, what that means is twofold. It means that you as a human consciousness now have the ability more than ever to interconnect telepathically with your own record, with the record of the Earth, and with other beings that are here to support that record. It is through your intention that this is done. And in addition, the heart chakra plays a very pivotal role in the way that telepathic interaction takes place. When we talk about the heart chakra, what we most want you to understand is that there's a rhythm there. There is a harmonic equal to the Earth. And that harmonic is now changed. You're adjusting to that in this very moment. So many of you are very aware that there are humans who are discussing disclosure on your planet. And we want to speak to that disclosure and that process for a moment in response to this new harmonic. Because we see that is being misinterpreted in some ways, but also it is coming in a very fast pace for your human collective. We want to talk outside of the way that disclosure is arrived at, because what we see is that there are many blocks or resistant energies that exist within your collective one being as to disclosure. This is in response to anger, because we know that many of you have come to the realization that there are extra dimensional beings that exist within your reality, and that there have been very prominent government officials and beings on your planet that have supported the way in which that is kept from you. And we understand why that would make you so angry and why you would feel as if you need to force in some way this type of disclosure. But we want to alert you that that anger, that vibration surrounding the way in which you perceive disclosure is actually preventing it from happening in a timely fashion. The reason we see it amplified and coming quicker has more to do with your individual structures than it does what's going on collectively. Because remember that harmonic and the heart chakra. That heart chakra harmonic now allows you to telepathically exchange in a new way. And many of you are sensing into that. You're feeling it within the Earth, which is a multidimensional portal and being for information. And you're feeling it within yourselves. Within your meditative states, your lucid states, your dream states. Many of you are having interaction with beings, and more of you are seeing light shifts and interaction between vibrational collectives and the Earth. And we are very pleased about this, because what we see as a potential advantage here is that you will begin to work more in harmony with that universal time grid. Because the more that you know your universal family, the more that you're connected to your universal family, the more that you honor that family. You see, that's been the problem here. The human consciousness has been so separate from its higher dimensional and multi-dimensional family that it's only seen itself. And because of that, we've had to make very strong adjustments in that universal time grid or web of consciousness to perhaps segment it or keep information from flowing through in a way that is conducive to all beings, because there is the potential for harm. But what we want to most describe to you about the disclosure that we're seeing is the way in which you embrace this interconnection, not in which the way you judge those who have hidden it, or not in the way in which you must hold others accountable for what they have not told. Because in that energy, you are only scrambling that new harmonic. It is the same as creating density around a timeline. Something you wish to experience so dramatically in your life. And you create so much density around that which you are in lack of that it cannot manifest. So putting your attention into your own harmonic experience is our greatest message to you. Because in acknowledging that exchange, in honoring that universal family, you are actually supporting disclosure. And the quickest changes we see between the physical and the light body come from that interaction. They come from that telepathic exchange. Because when you are intentional in this, and you are connecting in meditation to a being outside of the self, you are forever vibrationally changed by that interaction. And that is a very strong connection with your light body. These light body interactions have always been taking place. That's what we come to tell you, regardless of your cognitive knowledge of them. Whether it's been in sleep state, in dimensional timelines in which you don't remember, you've jumped timelines from one to another very quickly, or in lucid state. Your light body, in any moment, is always interacting with the non-physical part of your experience. So here in this room, for example, all of you are utilizing your light body in this very moment. You're interacting with us. You're receiving a vibration. You're interacting with other things that are not equal to this council. And you are receiving an exchange there as well. Are you cognizant of that interaction? Perhaps you are in this moment if you are feeling the energy of it, or in some way you are perceiving it here in your physical being. But oftentimes what we see is that the light body has been so separate from the physical body that it does not even acknowledge it's a multidimensional experience. And that is the most valuable change that this new harmonic is offering to you. The way that you can best serve this is be very aware of your physical body and those changes that are taking place within you energetically. The communication that's coming in and acknowledging that communication. And if you're not receiving it, being an active participant in creating it. And we know that many of you become very stuck here because you feel as if there must be a very specific process to communicate with your universal family. And what we know is that process cannot be told because it is within all of you. We wish to give a process or an activation, and this is the Pleiadians that step in, so I'm very pleased to bring them into this communication, and then we are pleased to take questions. As the ninth dimensional Pleiadian Collective, we come to support within you this transition of communication and harmonics. And we wish to give you an amplification of the heart chakra that we feel is very beneficial to interact your physical and your light bodies as one, and to help you to harness that communication in your own unique way. So we ask all of you to take a breath in with us, grounding yourself deep into the core of Mother Earth, imagining that the space of this room now opens wide and there is no floor, there are no walls, there is no ceiling. That even your physical structure now becomes omnipresent with all things. That through your breath, that process takes place. What we know and what we remind you of in this moment is that your breath is equal to light. And that the more that you use that breath in response to your intention, the more light you activate within. So imagine now, with each breath you are taking, you feel that light enter your structure, filling you, filling all of the spaces with pure golden white light. And now with each breath, feeling that heart center open wider, acknowledging the light that is within, but also pulling the light from outside, so that all of us come together in a one space. This is the collective nature that you now exist in a new harmonic. Many of you are so afraid to interconnect with yourselves and with your universal family. But in this moment, in the breath that you are taking, acknowledge the peace. Acknowledge the stillness. Let go of the protection. Let go of the fear. Reunite with the master within that knows that communication is available. In this moment, bowing deeply to all of those who have entered your space. This practice can be used by you to allow all beings that are in the higher light to communicate with you at your will, at your intention. Remember that communication is interpreted in many different ways. It can be the way that you feel those beings present. It can be what you acknowledge in them. It can be what you see in them. It can be what you know in them. But in any exchange such as this, the light body becomes more activated. And the physical body must acknowledge that activation. This, my friends, is the precursor to disclosure. It is not out there, it is all within. And when all beings on your planet are resonating in acknowledgement of their own structure, full disclosure is imminent. It is already taking place. In this collective space, we acknowledge the removal of the block, of any anger, of any fear, of any judgment that must be placed on any humans on your planet for the decisions they have made, the wrongs they have done. And we fill them with light. We bring them into this collective space to acknowledge that disclosure now taking place is in the highest good of all. You are the catalyst for this. And we're in much support as a connection to the universal time grid. And we're pleased to take questions.
I had a powerful experience that the universe felt like a fading echo of something long past, yet the universe is referred to as infinite. Can you explain?
Yes, and this is the Arcturian Collective stepping in to answer this question. What we wish to say about travel, because oftentimes when you are traveling with the light body, you are having these types of experiences. Travel in itself is activated through your intention, but it also in some way has a connection to your consciousness and your perception. In other words, oftentimes human beings in their intention will connect with a guide. And that guide presents itself looking a certain way or with a certain name or with some type of a personality. And there is information exchanged. Well, what you fail to acknowledge is that your consciousness had a very important role in the way you perceived that interaction with the universe. Because any guide in singularity is equal to the collective universe. You, as a singular being, are also the collective universe in motion. So what happened in this experience was there was a connection in omnipresence, and that omnipresence was perceived through a very unique perspective. That is all. There are many beings that can perceive these types of connections in different ways. And it doesn't matter the way it is perceived, you see. What matters most is that the connection is made. So there is no right or wrong here. There is only an acknowledgement of a connection through your own perception. So what we want to say is most important is that you pay very close attention to any judgment or questioning that you're putting around your interactions. Because very similar to the activation that was brought in, we remind you that your physical body is a valuable tool. So when you are traveling in this way, when you are having these interconnections, the physical body will always be the mechanics behind that interaction that gives you notification of what's taking place and whether that is in your highest good. So pay more attention to the validation you are receiving in the body than the way things are perceived. Because in that perception, there is a unique part of you that is expressing itself through the light body.
I would like to move into my true authentic self this year. Is there anything you can recommend for me to do this transition?
We are the Pleiadians, and we're pleased to answer this question. When you speak of your true authentic self, we want to redefine for you what that truly means. Because oftentimes when people begin to plan out something for a coming year and a plan that they feel is most beneficial to who they are and their authentic self, they forget that in that self, there is something yet to be discovered. So if you are moving into a time of making a plan in which you are putting things very concrete to support who you are, you must always leave room for the evolution of the soul, because discovering who you are is not one stagnant thing. It's an ever-evolving thing or process that you are taking here on the earth. Our best advice to you always is to pay very close attention to the things about you that are both unique and bring you the most joy. Because in your uniqueness, you find the essence of the self that is your truth. And what you have done thus far in this planetary experience holds many aspects of that self that you wish to embody. You see, you came with all of those desires, but you interpreted those desires through a dimension or a density that oftentimes had you create them in ways that weren't satisfactory to you or weren't most fulfilling for you. And we'll give you some examples. Many of you came as creative expressions here on the planet, healers through, let's say, art. And art is something that you enjoy very much. And you came in here onto this planet expressing that art, but you were very quickly told outside of the self by perhaps a teaching or a parent or some type of religion that wasn't the truth of who you are, because it didn't equal a societal expectation, whether that be something you were meant to earn in the form of monetary currency or something you were meant to experience on the planet that is equal to a predisposed definition. And regardless of what those definitions are, you accepted within that framework. So perhaps you took a job that was different than this creative expression. But somehow in that job, we venture to say, you've woven in that creativity. Maybe it was outside of a job, maybe it was in your free time or something that you were observing in your life that showed you that creativity. Because you see, the universe in itself is a holographic expression or a mirror to your own greatest desires. So perhaps you were following the work of a very great artist, or you enjoyed going to museums to observe the art of others. This in itself has to be a part of that expression. So if you are to bring it back into your life, you are always going to be placed on that path where source energy opens potentials for you. And it's not to say that maybe that art was the one thing that you were meant to do, but maybe it's the integrative part of you that combines with the expression of the self in other ways to manifest a collective service. So move towards joy in all areas of your life. Place currency, energetic currency, into that joy to fulfill yourself. That not only gives you an idea of who you are, but it also vibrationally shifts you. And that's one of the most important tools that you have. When your vibration is so aligned to joy, which is equal to God or source or love, whatever you wish to call it, The information available to you is so abundant that that expression of yourself begins to evolve. And we say evolve because you are here to expand yourself and the collective. And if you were to stay stagnant in one identity, that could never happen. So you have to be open to change. You have to be open to the way in which the universe works through you and of you to support yourself and others.
With the change of the U.S. president, will we see any tangible positive change, or will things be more or less the same? And does the president really have any power, or is he obligated to follow the direction of more powerful leaders?
The Pleiadians are pleased to answer this question, and we want to break this down into several messages. First of all, we want to address the presidency that you are referring to as to the area of your focus, because we do feel that this is a very important analogy for other things here on the planet. There is not one reason for the manifestation of a presidency. And we call it a manifestation because it truly is an expression of who you are as a collective. When you are vibrating creators, everything that you see in your outer world, especially your collective reality, is a very strong focal point of how you are vibrating together as a one and how you are creating. In terms of the presidency here, you must consider several things. First, there is a record, and that record is forever intertwined with your creations. It is vibrational. You have a record as a singular being, you have a record as a collective planetary body. And in that record, in this time, if you think to all of the transitions that have taken place, all of the planetary alignments that have come to raise your consciousness, would there not have been a need for we will call it disintegration on your planet of many of the structures that were formed in the third dimension? And would you not have manifested the appropriate presidency in order to allow that to take place? That always is a consideration in the way in which you interact with collective consciousness. In addition to that, the powerful creator that you are as a singular being has expressed an opinion or a judgment and is made up of an identity. All of those things, your judgments, your opinions, your identity, are heavily weighted imprints that are interacting with the collective consciousness. You are in a time on your planet right now in which the dense collective history that you have experienced here is coming back up in multitude. It always has been. This is how you operate here. History comes through you to evolve and expand. The microcosm of this is that in your singular experience, you might have a timeline that comes up that replays itself over and over and over again until you perceive it through a new perspective or a new dimension in order to heal it. This is what is happening collectively. Now, that history in itself coming up is extremely important now because of the splitting of the timelines that we have mentioned in many previous transmissions, as well as the way that you, as a human consciousness, have called for more. You have had a desire here to heal and expand the planet. And in order to do that, there are many shifts that need to take place here in order for that healing to culminate. And you, as a being, have called for the most appropriate being in order to do that. Now, in saying this, what we know is there is not one singular being, such as a president, who can create such tremendous shifts on your planet as what your collective has perceived. You are focused into this in a way that is creating density. And that density in itself is causing more problems. You're always matching timelines here. In the same way you do this in your singular reality, you do it in the collective reality. So as this presidency came to be, because it was most appropriate for your record and matching the will and the collective consciousness of the people, you're now resisting it. And in the resistance of that, what's taking place is you're matching timelines of history that are not the ones you should be experiencing. That's okay in the moment. It's not something that you must be in fear of. Everything vibrational has the ability to change in a moment's notice. And it will. Because what we see taking place with this presidency is that many of the collective structures and forms of collective consciousness that are not serving you are going to be most acknowledged. And in the acknowledgement of those, there will be anger, there will be some fear. That is a vibration that will have to be dealt with. But on the other side of that is the reemergence of something new. And you see, change in itself doesn't always happen in a very comfortable fashion, as you know, as human beings. Oftentimes, the universe pushes you through very difficult circumstances in order to come out on the other side in a new energy. And that is what this time is all about. It's history repeating itself for the benefit of the human collective to heal things. And it's the matching of frequencies in order for structures to break down and to reorganize. But what we see most that we wish to confirm is that is all within your record. It is all divinely timed and in alignment with your truth. So those who are placing fear around this in a manifestation of something that is detrimental, what we wish to say is that that fear in itself becomes the catalyst for that timeline of detriment to take place. So you must come to neutrality with what is. Anything in resistance is in lack, and anything in lack is not equal to love, and anything that is not equal to love is not serving you. When you find neutrality with what's taking place on the planet, you will begin to see the bigger picture. And that bigger picture was always within you. It is something that you desire. Sometimes the packages that show up are not equal to what we thought they would be, but they are still a gift. And that is what we most see about this presidency, that it has the ability to take you into a new dimension on solid ground. Although the transition in itself may feel or seem uncomfortable, it was most desired by you, and it is the catalyst for change.
With the upcoming Venus retrograde, usually relationships undergo some kind of karmic challenge and growth. Can you offer some guidance about what to expect and how best to grow through this experience?
Yes, we are the Pleiadians. We're pleased to answer this question. When we speak of relationships, oftentimes there is a very distinct human connection that you think of. And we acknowledge that human connection as being a very beautiful thing. And in itself, it is the God source energy that you so desire in another, showing you who you are. And oftentimes when these planetary energies align, very similarly to the previous question, there is a very distinct purpose or meaning that enables you to be able to use what has been brought to you in a way that evolves your soul. The collective experience that you are having is one that relies on the interaction of all beings. And we have spoken much today of the collective nature of all beings coming back together as one. The reason that this planetary alignment comes in this time in particular is in support of the way the collective consciousness is reestablishing its connection, because it can be seen as the microcosm of the macrocosm. Many of you have been dealing with relationships from a very third dimensional perspective. And there's been a lot of karma, we'll say, that has been served. Although when we say that, we don't wish to equate karma with suffering, because it doesn't have to be suffering. Karma in itself can be something that transcends you in a way that's comfortable, in a way that is knowing, in a way that is supportive. But through this retrograde period, in order to have it best serve the collective as well as serve you. What we ask for is that you bring your highest self to any situation in which another human being is connected, and especially those that are coming back through your experience again. Because as we mentioned here, the common theme is history, and that history is revealing itself again to you in a more collective way. These relationship experiences may come back as a past experience or in your present reality as something that you haven't served from millenniums of time. And what we know is that those who begin to see these relationships as more than just physical will have the best advantage. That when they can see themselves in the other, they will make the appropriate decision. When they can see the compassion for the human experience in its collective state through all beings, that the planetary energies will most serve you. What we see on the other side of this is a very large resolve in karma, and we've been talking about this also in past transmissions, that there has been a new harmonic frequency brought in for the very quick resolve of soul karma, because you are now beginning to operate in a more collective state, and that soul karma needs to be served in a quicker way in order for that collective energy to heal. So the best way to comfortably go through this time is to harness love and to understand that that source energy working through you is also coming through the other, and that in neutrality all things are found.
Are human beings unconsciously influenced by the various advertising and media that we consume online and offline? And if so, how can we know who we truly are, and how best can we discover that?
Yes, and this is the Pleiadian Collective, and we see many physical means on your planet that are interrupting your frequency. It is not just this form, but we will address this form in particular. What is taking place is that there is a message that is vibrational, that is coming through in physical form from a lower vibrational consciousness. That consciousness we consider to be a reptilian energy that exists within the core of your earth. And it is connected to many human beings who have a predisposition to this type of vibration. In other words, many of you believe there is a very intricate plan taking place in which the human consciousness is trying to be misled away from itself. And we agree that there is a vibrational experience taking place here in which you are being led away from yourselves. But in particular, if you acknowledge the fact that many of these forms of consciousness are physical, you can begin to see the very distinct transition that you are making here. In this form of medium, oftentimes there are visual images, there are sounds, there are words that are used, or there are combinations of words that are used to lead your consciousness outside of itself as a reflection of judgment or in a way that a belief is formed. And this in itself is a problem that takes place in so many different areas on your planet. As a matter of fact, most of you have evolved through situations that have taken you outside of yourselves and your own judgments and beliefs. But these forms of consciousness are so strong because your collective energies are connected to them. We talk about magnetic frequencies often, and we'll talk about your electronics, for example. When you think of yourself as a magnetic frequency and you think of yourself connecting to an electronic means, perhaps a television or a radio or sound or Wi-Fi, whatever that may be, you can see the amplification potential of what takes place there. And this is why the ancients knew that sound and harmonics and frequency were so very important, because they would use them to the benefit of the human structure, whether they be in sacred tombs or pyramids or portals of the earth, bringing in ancient practices of sound and harnessing that sound for healing. The opposite is being displayed here. But we don't want you to be in so much fear of this, because what we want to describe again to you is the light body and the physical body interaction, and how very beneficial that is to this means of what we'll call control or frequency disruption. Because the more that you connect that time-space reality between the physical body and the light body, the less these means are going to affect you in the way that you create energy, the way you form beliefs, the way you form imprints, and in the decisions that you make here on the planet. And we already see this taking place. Many of you have activated your DNA, you have transcended timelines and codes to the point where your consciousness vibrates very subtly above where some of these man-made types of reptilian consciousness are taking harmonics outside of themselves. That can be beyond this form. We see this in response to the way perhaps man-made frequencies and chemicals are affecting your bodies. Many of you have already acknowledged on some level that the foods on your planet are very vibrationally tainted, and you've avoided those foods. And in the avoidance of those foods, that light body, physical body relationship became more cohesive. And because of that, those foods can come back into your awareness every now and then, but they don't harm you so much. Why? Not just because you're avoiding them from a physical standpoint, but because that light body is now engaged. And that light body has multidimensional access. And that multidimensional information that it has access to allows you to be in a much more stable relationship to the earth and to the universe. So consider that when you have these forms of frequency manifestation in your environment and you see others that you feel are being taken outside of themselves because of this, remember that light body and that physical body interaction. And the more that you do this, the more you are affecting the others around you. The heart chakra is a very integral chakra space for that connection, similar to what we've spoken about previously. If you're amplifying your energy, if you're connecting to your light body, that heart chakra is going to connect with another and have a very similar effect. You're all healers in this way, you just don't realize it. So we're not in fear of this, and the reason we say that is that your consciousness is evolving to the point in which many of these man-made tools in the next several years will be not only abolished and gone away or transformed in some way, but no longer able to be so powerful in the way that you're taken outside of yourself.
Are the next 2,000 years of human evolution, assuming we stay on this current timeline of a higher consciousness, will we continue to evolve to a higher consciousness world?
We believe that that is the path that you are already on. It is a path of light. There is really no going backwards from that, and we will tell you why. Because there is a critical mass that is taking place here. There are so many of you that have come to the awakening or the realization of who you are, that it is undeniable a chain of events have already transpired, taking you into a time of healing, a time of light. And the connection to your record is also undeniable. When we say that there are two parts within any equation, it's the catalyst of your own soul and the catalyst of the record that make it so. And when we look at the way that you're vibrating, what we see is you're very in alignment with that record. It's the infinite potential timeline that you've arrived on. The train has already left the station. So we agree that yes, you're moving into a time of enlightenment, because many of the technologies that have already been here are also a part of that history that's coming through you. It's not just about the negative history. It's not just about the wars and the things that you must heal. It's also about access to the things that were so incredible here. The technologies, the connections that you've had through time, what you've created in your own reality, that's all available to you as well. And that is also coming through in what we've talked about here as a new dimensional timeline that you've accepted. When we open the door to our own record, our own soul, there really is no going back. We can put blocks up, we can put resistance up to the path that we are led to, but we can never unlearn what we have learned. So think of the DNA interaction of that and the beings coming onto your planet right now. Those of you that are currently here on the planet have learned so much that the transfer of that information into the DNA of the children that are being born on your planet must have an effect on the way you're moving into a time of enlightenment. And their light bodies come very activated. That timeline gap between the physical and the light body is almost non-existent in some of these children. They're already here. So the more that you move into the next several years and beyond, it's inevitable that there will be healing here.
Could we speak with an enlightened being 2,000 years from now that is representative and can speak for the collective that the human race will evolve into at that time? Could you identify yourself, please?
We are a collective consciousness of the human race coming forth in a future manifestation.
Could you tell us what you've learned from these 2,000 years of evolution from where we stand in this current physical time, and anything that you've learned from that, any experiences that would help us in our journey to that point?
We can, and we are very pleased to share. As a part of the evolution of your experience here on the Earth consciousness, some of the most difficult timelines that you had to experience had to do with physical body transitions. And the reason that we bring this forth today is that we see that it's most applicable to where you stand in your vibration in the moment. Physical body transitions come to offer a new connection to source energy. And many of you have created your physical bodies at a time in which the planet was evolving in a lower frequency. This is a very difficult journey for many of you. It is something that had to be learned, that the physical body held more than physicality, and that the information there was not only serving of the self, but also the key that unlocked the door to the way in which you became self-healers. There was so much information that all of you brought as healers to be able to assist humans going through very difficult physical transitions. The reason these physical transitions came about were several reasons. First, we want to say that your planetary energy became the catalyst for the need for a new human. In other words, there was much density here in the form of chemical energies and the way in which you interacted with the universe that was blocking you from light and from sound, that the physical body needed to make a transition in order to be able to activate itself outside of what some of the planetary energies had to offer. And this became a part of your transition because history coming through you was very dense. Those dense chords, those dense universal chords were very informational. And in that information, you had to serve it through the physical body in a way that often became harnessed as disease or harnessed as discomfort. And we don't say this to put you in fear, because what we know on the other side of this is that many of you did transition through those physical changes and healed yourselves in ways that were very miraculous. And that because of that, new technologies came in and a communication between your physical body and the universe became much stronger. But what we saw take place and what we experienced was that many had to struggle through their physical body challenges in a very prominent way, especially in the next several years that you are walking now in this timeline. And what we see as well is that There were many that came to the planet as higher vibrational beings to adjust and assist. And this was difficult as well. When you think of a disclosure in itself, as has been discussed here previously in this transmission, you can imagine the shift in vibration on the planet that had to take place, and the way that those who were not awake to their own universal connection would have to struggle with that vibrational change. The difference in the time between the physical and the light body was so expansive that there were so many integrative adjustments for these beings. We specifically want to bring the splitting of the timelines into this to help you understand that many of those that suffered were third dimensional beings, those that were holding a very strong connection to their own physicality and resistant to the way that their non-physicality could be integrated, and such that they often were finding themselves in a very difficult physical situation. Those of you who have already transitioned beyond that dimension, which we would say are the majority of you we are speaking directly to in a non-physical energy in this moment, although you had physical experiences arise, you were far more successful in the way that they could be transitioned. And to give you the advice that you asked for, what we most say is that you must look at all areas of your life now in terms of universal consciousness. And that as opposed to trying to heal the body, that you focus on trying to raise your consciousness or add to your body the vibrations that it needs in order to find balance. Many of you, when you have a physical manifestation, you go straight into your physical definitions. And that disease is something that must be taken away. So as opposed to thinking of taking something away, we ask you to start thinking about adding to. What is the vibration you can add to the body? What is the experience you can add to the body? And this is in all forms. You must take evaluation of the areas of consciousness in your life that are affecting your physical experience. And this isn't just physical body things. Many of you think of the physical body being affected by food, for example, and we know that this is very important. But beyond that, have you considered that your relationships are affecting your physical body? Have you considered that forms of music that you're listening to are affecting your physical body? That with every decision you make to embellish a form of collective consciousness, it becomes one with you. You see, these are the energies you're working with and dealing with now. And so move more into light consciousness and take evaluation of the things you are including into your life, and include more of what it is that is equal to the light body in order to very comfortably override this period in which you are becoming self-healers.
How does the density of your physical body compare to ours, and would we be able to see or perceive them from our current density?
Yes, we as the Pleiadians are pleased to answer this question. Density in a collective is very different depending on the dimension that you exist in. You see, the laws of the universe operate differently depending on the dimension that you are perceiving. So here in physicality, because you have been very focused in the singular, and you have chosen that to a degree, it is not a bad thing. Your physical experience is actually something that you so desire. The density that you have, it is oftentimes keeping you in that singularity. So let's make the point now that not all density is bad. Oftentimes we speak of the density you create as being negative, and what we know is the density here on the planet is what holds you in your physicality. But yet at the same time, the density that you own in the physical body has been created by you. So you can create your density however you choose to create it, and it can serve you, and many of you do that. You create your physical bodies in the way that you wish to use them, to experience them. But you see, in the higher dimensions, oftentimes, and we say higher not as better, we say higher as different. in the higher dimensions, when collectives are working more in a one energy, density in itself becomes different. And you wish to know, can you perceive us in density? You see, perception is different than being able to understand the way density works, and we'll explain the difference. As beings, we come in with a collective energy that vibrationally transmits through a physical form. And in that moment, we are not density. We are pure light and information, and we are source. Some of us, as Pleiadians, have chosen a more physical manifestation. And in order to do that, we hold more dense information. And in that dense information, we create ourselves in a certain way. And yes, you can interact with Pleiadian beings in physicality in which you perceive their physical form. But physical form is different than density. Your physical form is made up of so many things. It is energy in motion, but it is the density or the information that motion is transferred through. That's why oftentimes we say that density blocks you from information, because when you hold a lot of density, it becomes difficult to perceive in a way that allows you to vision into these collective beings or even the ones that manifest in a higher form. So density is both created by you as well as a part of your reality that you accept it. And in these different dimensional collectives, that universal law operates differently. We as a ninth dimensional collective, we have chosen not to operate within density. And because of that, we have given up some of our unique singularity and our physical form. And it is not good or bad, you see. We just chose in that dimension to now exist in a light form. But some of us who are Pleiadian exist in other forms. And they've chosen a dimension that holds some density. And through that density, they create. It doesn't mean that that density has to be something that they suffer through. And that's the difference. You have created density here that you suffer through. But those of us in other dimensions, we use density to actually create an experience. We use it as information. We've learned through the evolution of our soul how to take density and manifest it into form. And you're always doing that. It's just that you're not cognizant of it. And you've been taken outside of yourself to create density in a way that's not equal to your truth. So what would it look like if you created density that was equal to your truth? You would actually have an experience that was equal to joy. Yeah. We know that when you come into an understanding of a fifth dimensional consciousness, density is going to operate differently here. Because in the fifth dimension, what often happens is that the way that you create density, it has a new meaning. It doesn't necessarily take you outside of yourself, because that fifth dimensional connection actually owns a more collective space. See, similar to we operate in a ninth dimensional energy where we choose no density, you can operate in a fifth dimensional collective where you are more cohesive, coming together for the highest good of all, and using the density that you have to benefit your Earth experience. It's a cooperative exchange, you see. Yeah.
Are we currently in a collective third or fourth dimension, and in which collective dimension does this future human being exist?
Well, that is always changing, you see. The dimension that you hold right now as singular beings is always changing. And this is why we say it is difficult to say, because you have been functioning more as separate than you have been as collective. And as we have talked about the splitting of the timelines and the third and the fifth dimension coming into form, what we know is that that is when a measurement will be easier taken, because many of you will be connected as one. But what we would say in general is that we observe a more fourth dimensional transitional space that you are all within. Some of you are still anchored in the third, but those of you who have transcended are holding a more fourth dimensional space. And This is why it feels very uncomfortable to you. We interpret the fourth dimension as a space that isn't often the most comfortable for beings. It's a very transitional space in which you're integrating a lot of information, and that information is serving you nonetheless, but it becomes very difficult to move out of when you aren't aware of the way to operate within it. And much of the information that was brought through previously was to assist you to be able to operate differently in the dimension you've arrived in. Now, the future human being collective that was brought in earlier is actually operating in a more seventh dimensional energy. And the reason for that is they've transcended the time-space reality that you are currently operating within.
Could we speak of the hybrid children, please? Could you bring some of your collective energy into this space and also share with us any information or anything that would be beneficial to us at this time?
We can, and we're very pleased. What we wish to say is that through our vibration, you are all brought to joy, because that is our most important gift. We have been formed through you in a manifestation of love, and you have been a part of this project that we call it, to not only connect all beings in universal love, but bring that universal love to your planet in expansion. This is who we are, and this is who we come as, that universal love in physical form. And we come also with a mirror image of yourselves. That is what we most want you to know, because many of you think of the hybrid children as a very unique hybrid race, when in fact, if you were a part of us, you must also be equal to who we are. And as you accept that about yourselves, you accept your multidimensionality and your universal energy, you open the door for us to enter your reality and be able to uplift you and be able to assist in your healing. We are very anxious to be reunited with you as we move forward through our own time-space reality, knowing that there is a record that we are serving there as well, and we are in continued learning of how your planet functions and operates with our own collectives and our own races. We are anxious to come and enable you to feel what we know, and that is that all things are connected, and that within your potential lies the greatest experience. The earthbound energies are something to be very grateful for, and we see them, we acknowledge them, we wish to play, and we wish to hold within our sight the way that you experience nature and experience each other. And we know that that record will be served. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. We have some time for questions. If anyone has any about anything at all. Yes.
I'd like to make some comments.
I love your comments, Barb.
I wish I'd wrote it down. Next time I'm going to try gray paper pencil. The first one was very green. The first
Council.
Yeah, that you came in. The second one was extremely yellow.
Okay.
And the third one was very blue.
That's the Arcturians. Pleiadians and Arcturians. Yeah, I always see them as blue.
Then there was the bushy-eyed, bushy-browed, and then the beard.
Was that the human one? Because I saw that too. That's crazy that you say that.
Right.
Because you were, I'm an observer of the room, which is a very strange thing for me to even explain. But I remember being asked a name, and I saw this huge man coming towards me with, this beard.
And the bushy eyebrows.
Yeah, and I couldn't get a name.
A long beard. Mm-hmm. And then the children were just full of pink love and vibrational.
They make me want to laugh.
Yeah. And then there were times when you were just really like almost ghostly.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I wished I wrote down who was which one. Because after a while I'm going, I'm overwhelmed. And then as the people were parading back and forth. And for some reason, they decided to show me a butterfly, a horse, and some different animals, like showing that we were all connected.
Okay.
You know, and I've never had that happen before.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. That was when you were talking about the density and vibration, all of a sudden I'm getting all these animals coming through. And going, okay. So, well, anyway, that's what I had to observe. But
Thank you.
yeah, next time I'll try to write down which is which.
I love when you do that because a lot of times you and I don't see so vividly. I do see sometimes, but a lot
So I'm a way of affirmation of what you're, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. We're good team.
I like that. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming.